The story of Nal and Damayanti is one such chapter of Mahabharat that is known to lesser people. Actually, during the exile of Pandavas, Yudhisthira was in great despair. To motivate him and the other Pandavas, sage Vrihadashwa narrated the story of Nal and Damayanti to them. Nal was the prince of Nishads and Damayanti was the princess of Vidarbha. While Nal was the most handsome man of the time, Damayanti's beauty was praised even in Devlok. When the self-choice of Damayanti was organized, Indra, Agni, Varun and Yam also visited Vidarbha to participate. There they saw Nal and were impressed by his personality. They sent Nal to Damayanti with a message. Nal, who was already in love with Damayanti, went with a heavy heart to Damayanti with the message of the Devas. He told Damayanti that the Devas wanted to marry her and she must choose someone from among them. But Damayanti was instantly attracted to Nal, and in the Swayamvar or self-choice, she declared her love for Nal by choosing him as her life partner. The Devas respected her choice and went back. On their way back, they saw Kali and Dwapar. When the Devas asked the purpose of their journey, Kali revealed that he wished to win Damayanti's hand in her Swayamvar. The Devas laughed at Kali and revealed that the Swayamvar was over and Damayanti had chosen Nal for her husband. Kali was furious. He decided to separate Nal and Damayanti. He asked Dwapar for help. Kali made Nishad kingdom his abode and waited for the right time. After 12 years, he finally got a chance to enter the body of Nal. He also manipulated Pushkar, the cousin brother of Nal, and provoked him to invite Nal for a dice game. He assured him his victory. On request of Kali, Dwapar took a place in the dice. Pushkar invited Nal for the dice game and under the influence of Kali, Nal accepted the challenge. In the game, Nal lost badly. When he lost everything, then Pushkar asked Nal to put Damayanti on stake. Nal got furious and left the game. He left the kingdom in a single piece of cloth and Damayanti also followed her husband. Nal and Damayanti were roaming in the forest in a single piece of cloth. They had no food or water. A hungry Nal saw a few birds on the ground. He tried to catch them with his robe, but unfortunately the birds flew away taking his robe with them. Nal had lost his cloth as well. He wept on his misfortune. Damayanti consoled her husband and teared a part of her cloth and gave it to Nal so that he could cover his body. Hungry and thirsty, they somehow slept in a cave. When Damayanti was in deep sleep, Nal left the spot. He thought that if left alone, Damayanti might return to her father's kingdom. But it didn't happen. When Damayanti woke up and found her husband missing, she began to cry. She helplessly searched him in the forest. A large snake attacked Damayanti. A passing by hunter saw that and killed the snake. But soon Damayanti realized that his intentions were evil. Hence, she ran away. After a lot of struggle, Damayanti finally reached the kingdom of Chedi. When the queen of Chedi saw Damayanti, she was mesmerized by her divine beauty. She appointed her as a Sarindri in her palace. On the other hand, Nal had his own set of troubles. When he was wandering in the forest, he saw fire at distance. Nal heard someone screaming and went close to help. A snake named Karkotak was stuck in fire. Nal rescued the snake, but shockingly, the snake bit him and turned him into an ugly-looking dwarf. Karkotak apologized to Nal and revealed his true intentions. Actually, Karkotak had sensed the presence of Kali in Nal's body. He wanted to punish Kali and hence he had poisoned Nal and transformed him into a dwarf. He asked Nal to go to Ayodhya and learn the game of dice from the king of Ayodhya named Rituparna. Once Nal gets skilled in dice game, Kali would leave his body. Also, Karkotak gave a magical robe to Nal which will transform him back to his original form. On advice of Karkotak, Nal went to Ayodhya. There he presented himself as a cook and charioteer named Bahuka. He told Rituparna that he was an excellent charioteer and no one could beat him at speed. Time went by and Damayanti's father Bhim deployed messengers in all directions to search for Nal and Damayanti. Nal was nowhere to be found, but a priest recognized Damayanti in Chhedi. He brought back Damayanti to Vidarbha. Damayanti's children were already in Vidarbha. Now she wanted to get back her husband. To find Nal, she sent messengers in all directions. She sent them with a special message, a message that could only be responded by Nal. A messenger of Damayanti reached Ayodhya. He started singing the message of Damayanti in form of a song. At last, someone responded to that message. Shockingly, it was a dwarf who completed the song. When Damayanti heard that a dwarf named Bahuka had responded to her song, she understood that it must be her husband. But she needed to be sure. To know the whole truth, she sent another messenger to Ayodhya with another message. This time, the message was to be announced in front of King Rituparna. The message said that the princess Damayanti had decided to remarry and she was hosting her self-choice the very next day. Damayanti knew that Nal was an excellent charioteer and only he could travel fast enough to reach Vidarbha from Ayodhya in just one day. As was expected, the king of Ayodhya desired to marry Damayanti. He called upon his charioteer Bahuka. The order was to take the king to Vidarbha in one day. Bahuka found an opportunity. He put forth a condition in front of the king and said, "I will take you to Vidarbha in one day if you could teach me the game of dice." The king agreed and taught him the game of dice. As soon as Nal learnt the game, Kali left his body. Bahuka then fulfilled his promise and rode to Vidarbha with the king. When they reached Vidarbha, they saw no sign of self-choice. Damayanti was waiting eagerly for them. When she saw Bahuka, she sensed that it was her husband Nal, but he looked different. How to be sure? She knew that Nal loved cooking. So she sent a maid to Bahuka and asked him to cook food for her. When she tasted the food prepared by Nal, all her doubts vanished in thin air. She sent her kids to Bahuka. Looking at his children, Nal got emotional and hugged them tightly. Damayanti herself approached Bahuka and started crying. Nal could not control his emotions. He used the magical robe given by Karkotak and revealed his true form. He told Damayanti about all his struggles and sought her forgiveness. Damayanti forgave Nal. Now just one thing was left. Nal had to take back his kingdom. He had already learned the dice game from Rituparna. Confident enough, he invited Pushkar for another match. This time Damayanti was at stake. Nal won and lived happily with his wife and family. By this story, sage Vrihadashwa wanted to tell the Pandavas and Draupadi that the struggles of Nal and Damayanti were greater because in their struggle they were alone. But the Pandavas and Draupadi were together in their fight, hence they must not feel discouraged. I'll keep bringing similar stories from our scriptures and Mahabharat. If you like the video, please hit the bell icon and subscribe to my channel.